What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Underdog Podcast. Today, we will be continuing my AFC draft grades with the AFC South. AFC West will be tomorrow. We did the AFC North yesterday and the AFC East on Tuesday. Today, also, the schedule is being released for the NFL tonight at 8 p.m. There's been a bunch of leaks already. I think some full schedules are out. I'm not for certain on that, though. You can find them on Twitter if that's where you would like to look for them. But I will be doing a breakdown of that on Saturday. I will be going week by week, best matchups type of thing. I won't be doing record predictions because that's going to be part of this offseason series that I'm going to be doing, which will be revealed hopefully next week. On top of that, I will be doing an offseason awards video next week. And then I will be getting into this series hopefully next week, like late next week, but I can't promise anything. It's a big project that I'm working on, so I hope that you guys tune in for that for sure. And thank you always for supporting the channel. So let's start with the AFC South Draft Grades with our first team, the Houston Texans. And their number 3 overall pick was Derek Stingley Jr., who I did call this as one of my pre-draft bold predictions, was that Derek Stingley Jr. would be a top 3 pick. He went number 3 overall to the Houston Texans. He's a very good scheme fit in this Tampa 2 scheme that Lovie Smith likes to run. A lot of press coverage from his corners, and they're mostly working flat or hitch curl routes, with occasionally him switching it up to man coverage as well. But I really like Derek Stingley Jr. in this scheme fit. He's got one of the best press techniques I've ever seen coming out as a corner. He's got long arms. He's a great athlete. I think the one question with him was long speed, and he ran 4.37, so there is no question about that anymore. Just a phenomenal athlete at the corner position. Great technique, great ball skills. I think the one question we had was, is he going to fit culture-wise? Because I think Houston is looking for guys that aren't opposed to be a part of a rebuild and to build something special here in Houston. And clearly Nick Caserio thought he would be okay with it. There's kind of been this downward spiral at LSU the last 2 years after winning the national title. Ed Orgeron got fired, and they just have not been a great team. And Stingley's also been hurt the last 2 seasons. So with that combination, I was a little bit lower on him, but I think Stingley can come in here and really be a force to be reckoned with for this team. Then you have Kenyon Green, the guard from Texas A&M. I wasn't as high on this pick as some other people because Zion Johnson was still on the board, and this was probably the absolute earliest I would have thought about Kenyon Green. I think he's a great player. He's a hometown kid from Texas as he went to Texas A&M for college. So I think you're getting some benefits there where he might have been a Texans fan growing up and can play for his hometown team, play in front of his family, stuff like that, where you benefit. I think he's a guy that's going to immediately buy into this program as well, which is, I think, why they picked him. Kenyon Green's a smart dude, good football player, and is willing to, kind of build something, which is what he did at Texas A&M the last couple of years under Jimbo Fisher. I think he's a very good player. I don't personally love his technique as a pass protector. I think it needs some work to be cleaned up, as was shown when he was moved out to tackle for part of last season and the year before for Texas A&M. His foot speed just wasn't quite there, which is why I don't think he can be a tackle at the next level, but I think he can be a very good guard. He's a very good run blocker, mauler type dude. He gets his mitts on you and it's over. He does occasionally get wide with his hands. I think especially you saw that when he was at tackle, but I do like Kenyon Green as a player. So that grade as a C+ isn't so much against Green. I think it's just more of, I loved Zion Johnson as my number 4 player in this class, and I thought it was a little bit early for Kenyon Green, but they did trade back a couple spots, so can't fault them too much. Then we have Jalen Petrie, which I thought was an absolutely phenomenal pick. Versatile safety, can play in the box, can play nickel, could even play outside corner, could play strong, could play free. He's a very versatile piece for Lovie Smith, going to fit their scheme really well as kind of that like chess piece in the secondary where you can move him around. And they really don't have a lot of guys there. I mean, Justin Reed just left. I think Eric Murray's there. Terrence Brooks is there because they just traded away Lonnie Johnson to the Chiefs. So Petry's going to have a big role and play immediately for that Houston Texans defense for Lovie Smith. I think he's going to be very, very good in that role. And somebody to build around the secondary. You get Stingley Jr., you get Petry, kind of reloading that secondary. So I really like what Houston's been doing there. I thought that their biggest weakness coming into this draft was defensive back. I know that PFF kind of had a joke on their mock drafts where they need everything, but I think definitely their biggest need was secondary, and they addressed that early, which I loved. Very, very good picks there. And then they have John Mechie III from Alabama. B+, because I think it is, a good pick, but it's not incredible value. I had Mechie as a second-round guy, so very good pick here for Houston. He doesn't have to get back right away. He can work through his ACL injury and try and get healthy and such. But I do really like Mechie here. It gives him another guy to take the top off of defense. I think he can be a nice number 2 right away behind Brandon Cooks, who's a similar body style profile to John Mechie, where you can help him learn and be a mentor and stuff. And I also really like the receiving room. They got Nico Collins. They got some other nice young guys there that I really do like. So this just adds to it. I think Mechie, we don't know how much of an impact he'll have year one coming off that ACL, but following those years, I think he's going to be a really nice impact. And then Christian Harris. I was a little bit lower on Christian Harris, I will say, but this is a perfect spot for him. He definitely needed to play in a system where linebackers were going to be used a lot in pass coverage, and that's what this Tampa 2 scheme thrives on, is guys that can really be used in zone coverage effectively, and that's what Christian Harris does really well. I don't see him as a great run defender or tackler. He's not very physical at the point of attack when you ask him to be a downhill thumper. However, he is great in that will nickel dime linebacker role where he is playing a lot of pass coverage. I think he can get better as a guy that can play the run, but he's very well fit in this scheme and hidden from being a true run defender, as he can come on for passing downs in Lovie Smith's scheme and still going to play a lot year one. Then Dameon Pierce I thought was excellent value here out of Florida. He was my number 4 running back. I think he's probably going to be the bell cow from day one. I think he will beat out Marlon Mack. And if not, he'll at least get 10 to 12 carries a game as that change of pace back. The Texans' running back room is just awful right now, so I think Dameon Pierce is definitely going to play right away. And Marlon Mack has not been able to stay healthy the last 2 years. He tore his Achilles in 2020 in week 1, and then he, I think, was deactivated last season or just could not come back off that Achilles injury. So I think that Dameon Pierce definitely has all the tools you need to be a day one running back. He's got great power. I like his vision better than most people. He just doesn't have a lot of shiftiness to him, but he can run over some people. So I do like Dameon Pierce coming in here and being the day one running back. And then Thomas Booker, liked him out of Stanford in a weaker interior defensive line class. He really, I think, can come in here and at least be an early down run defender. Has some pass rush upside. Houston has not been able to stop the run over the last couple of years, so I think throwing bodies in there is not a bad pick in my opinion. And then Tegan Quitoriano from Oregon State, was not a fan of him, had a terrible combine. He's a big-bodied guy. His hands are questionable. I think he's a good hard worker, which is why they like him. I think he's a very good culture fit. I'm just not as high on him as the football player. But I know he did have a rough combine and had better tape than what the combine showed. I'm just not very high on him. I did not think he was a draftable player, but I do like the culture fit here, so maybe they find something. And their tight end room is not great. I do like Brevin Jordan, but after that, it's nothing much, really. And then Austin Deculus, who was a 4-year starter at LSU. I just wasn't really blown away by his tape. He's smaller, so I think he's going to have a hard time dealing with power at the next level. His footwork and hand placement were just okay. Him as a run blocker, I think, was underrated. I think him getting on the move and kind of a wide zone scheme was probably his best fit, but that's not really Houston. They're more of an inside zone duo scheme, so we'll see how he fits in with that offensive scheme. So final grade here for the Texans is an A-. Overall, I thought they did a really good job, especially getting culture fits, guys that really want to be here in Houston. I felt like that was probably the best job that they did. And they got impactful players both day one and in the future. So really like this draft for Houston. I think they got 6 to 7 instant day one like impact players, which is very rare in a draft because I think Dameon Pierce is probably your running back one from day one. Christian Harris will be, on passing downs as a linebacker, fits that scheme really well. Mechie, as soon as he gets healthy, will be an impact. Petrie's probably your starting free safety day one with Justin Reed leaving. Kenyon Green's a day one starting guard, and Derek Stingley's your day one CB1 most likely. So I really liked that draft for the Houston Texans. Then we move on to the Indianapolis Colts, who did not have a first-round pick, as that was part of the Wentz deal. They also gave up a third-round pick next year, I believe, for Matt Ryan. Coming in here, and they get Matt Ryan a weapon early, and Alec Pierce, receiver from Cincinnati, who's a very, very good deep threat, super underrated speed, and I think he's an underrated route runner. I definitely think he has to work on, kind of his short to intermediate route running game, but he's a really nice comeback route, nice dig routes. I just think he's going to need to work on his route tree, and this is their replacement for T.Y. Hilton in the long run. I think he can play that T.Y. Hilton-esque role, should build chemistry nicely with Matt Ryan. He'll be the second wide receiver opposite of Michael Pittman. So a good pick there for Indianapolis, and I thought Pierce was definitely one of the more underrated guys coming into this process. Then they take the absolute athletic freak in Jelani Woods, which they've had success with these athletic freak type dudes. Eric Ebron flourished here. Mo Alley Cox has come around the last couple seasons. Then they grabbed Jelani Woods, who is a really stiff when he's running his routes and playing, but he is a freaking athletic freak. Tested super well at the combine in his pro day. He just needs to play looser, and when he's running his routes, especially on tape, he takes forever to get out of his routes. I think he'll learn from Mo Cox, who's definitely a more fluid athlete, to be able to come out of his routes. Not as stiff and tight and more fluid, and make it look more like he's playing football rather than trying to run through somebody. I don't know. But then we have Bernard Raymond here, tackle from Central Michigan, who I was not very high on. He was my 7th tackle, but he was an early second-round grade for me. He was a top 45 player in this class, so to steal him in the 3rd round is absolutely amazing value. He'll plug right in as their left tackle day one, which Indy plugged Eric Fisher there last season, who was coming off a torn Achilles after Costanzo retired. So this is a really good pick for the Indianapolis Colts. I believe that Raymond still has a long way to go. He kind of switched up his form at the Senior Bowl, which hurt him. So if he goes back to his regular technique, he should be fine. I think he's a very good pass protector. Run blocking, he's definitely going to need some work. I think he's less physical than some of these other guys, but I do really like Bernard Raymond in this spot. I think he fits very well. Then Nick Cross, who I couldn't believe was around at this point either. Very good safety, super athletic, a little bit stiff, but his cover skills are really good. Man coverage, I think he's one of the best safeties in this class. I don't think he's as rangy as some of these dudes, but I really do like him in this scheme next to Julian Blackman. I think he'll fit really well along with Kari Willis. I think he's going to be more of your downhill safety, which is what Kari Willis is, your strong safety. So he's playing downhill, playing in the box, guarding tight ends. I think you can man up some slot receivers too, so potentially in that nickel role. But I really like Nick Cross here for Indy. It's a future replacement for Kari Willis. Eric Johnson, IDL from Missouri State, good pick, was very productive there. I think he's got upside as both a run defender and a pass rusher, so we'll see how that works there in Indianapolis. I think he's similar to a Grover Stewart, more of that run defending type. I think he has more pass rush upside than Grover Stewart ever did, so I think they can groom him and kind of being that next guy. Andrew Ogletree from Youngstown State, more of a blocking tight end, but, Indy's always been more of that, 12 personnel type team where they have that blocking tight end. So kind of your Jack Doyle replacement there, who retired at the end of last season. Curtis Brooks, another IDL body thrown in there, and then Rodney Thomas, who's a really good athlete from Yale, potential to make this team as a special teamer and then develop into a high, and dime or nickel corner, I think. So good athlete, just probably a special teamer right away. So overall, an A for this draft class. They really hit on their early picks. They got a receiver, which they really needed, a tight end to replace, kind of fill out that room, and then really getting that left tackle, which was probably their biggest need of the offseason besides receiver. So really good draft there for the Indianapolis Colts as we move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who did not have the best draft, to say the least. So starting with Travon Walker. I talked about this in my first round draft grades video, but if you did not watch that, here's kind of the gist. Travon Walker's a phenomenal athlete. I think he had one of the best combines of all time and basically became the number one overall pick because of a combine. But my issues with this is Jacksonville did the exact same thing 2 years ago with K'Lavon Chaisson, who was a raw athlete coming out. Granted, he is nowhere near the run defender Travon Walker is, but he had the same freakish athleticism that Travon Walker did. Not quite to the extent, but he was a freak athlete. And K'Lavon Chaisson has basically done absolutely nothing for the Jacksonville Jaguars because they have failed to develop him. So my issue with this is that you're trusting the Jacksonville Jaguars with a new regime and Doug Peterson, who I am not a fan of, to develop a freak athlete in Travon Walker. Yeah, I'm not buying it. Walker, I will give him credit, is a very good run defender from day one. So he's probably a better run defender than Josh Allen is right now. So he's your best edge defender day one against the run, which helps him out because I think that will help him to build confidence right away, just making plays out on the edge in the run game and then becoming better as a pass rusher. But my other big issue is that he was not asked to rush the passer very often at Georgia. He was more of, you're a contained guy or you're stunning to the inside. So this dude is pretty much like a high school prospect as a pass rusher because he has no idea what he's doing. He has no moves, no counter moves, no ability to use speed to power, or really how to rush the passer because he was playing contain the whole time at Georgia. And I get it, that works for Kirby Smart's defense, but again, I don't see how that benefits him at the next level. You're literally getting a high school edge rusher playing for you at the next level. So I don't really trust the Jags to develop him, but I guess that's a TBD, but this grade is a D+, and I'm sticking with it because I thought this should have been Kayvon Thibodeau or Evan Neal or anybody. I mean, I don't agree with the pick. And then you go linebacker. You trade back up in the first round to go linebacker in Devin Lloyd. Look, I love Devin Lloyd. He was my only true first-round linebacker. This move does not make any sense whatsoever to me. I mean, they had Myles Jack at the end of last season, who was a very, very good player, has been a little bit injury-prone throughout his career, but he's a phenomenal player, especially against the pass. He's one of the better pass coverage linebackers in the league, and he's very good against the run. Then they signed Foyesade Oluokun to a huge deal, which doesn't make any sense to me, because Foyesade Oluokun's a decent player, but he's a good player. He's not great. I mean, he got paid great money. And then they cut Myles Jack because they can, I guess. I don't really understand why they cut him, and then Pittsburgh signed him, and now they're going to replace him with Devin Lloyd, except you had a much better player. And Devin Lloyd's very similar to Myles Jack. You had a much better player who was a similar type player to Devin Lloyd in Myles Jack. And I get that they were paying him a lot of money, but you just shelled out money to Foyesade Oluokun. Why didn't you shell out that money to a premier receiver? I don't understand it, man. So this is a B-. I love Devin Lloyd, but I just don't understand the Jags process in terms of this. So that's why it's a B-, because I just don't really understand the pick at all. And then Luke Fortner, who was one of my guys, I was higher on him. This is just too early for him, frankly. I had him as a later 3, late 3, mid 4 guy. So this is very early. This is probably the earliest I'm thinking of taking him. He's a good player and fits a need with Brandon Linder retiring. But I just don't know if they could have spent this pick on receiver or somewhere else. I do like the pick, but I just think it was a little bit too early. I think he's going to fit in their power run scheme, though. So, good pick. I just think it was a little bit too early for him. And then Chad Muma. Why is this pick graded a D-, you may ask? Well, it's very similar to the Devin Lloyd pick. This doesn't make any sense to me why Jacksonville would pick Chad Muma when they already have Foyesade Oluokun, Shaquille Quarterman, and Devin Lloyd. You literally have Chad Muma and Shaquille Quarterman. And I know that Shaquille Quarterman's more of just that thumper, not really as athletic as Chad Muma or good in pass coverage. But why do you need Chad Muma when you freaking gave Foyesade Oluokun, I think it was $64 million? This doesn't make any sense. This was genuinely one of the worst picks of the entire draft. It was awful. This pick does not make any sense to me from Jacksonville whatsoever. Why you cut Myles Jack and then take 2 linebackers when you need weapons for Trevor Lawrence? It just doesn't make any sense to me, man. Jacksonville just continues to suck at drafting. Just beyond suck. So then the only offensive player that they take in this draft class that's a weapon for Trevor Lawrence is Snoop Conner from Ole Miss, who I thought was more of a 7th round guy. And you already have ETN. I think he plays like ETN a lot. He's a good, change of pace back, I guess. Good receiving skills, but I felt like this could have been receiver. 2 guys that went undrafted at this spot was Kevin Austin Jr., who I think they picked up as an undrafted guy, so shout out to them for at least doing that. But why didn't you draft him in the 5th round here and take Snoop Conner as the undrafted pickup? I don't know. But Kevin Austin Jr., who they picked up as an undrafted free agent, who I had a 4th to a 5th round grade on, so this would have been excellent value, and Justin Ross, who I know had injury issues, but both of those would have been better picks than Snoop Conner in my opinion. I don't know if Khalil Shakir was still on the board or not. I knew he was taken in the 5th round, but if he was on the board and you took Snoop Conner, that's an even worse pick. So, and they take 2 longer athletic cornerbacks who probably can be special teamers day one in Gregory Jr. from Ouachita Baptist and Monteric Brown from Arkansas. So, and they needed some more bodies there in the cornerback room. I think these guys have some upside, could potentially turn into starters. At least day one, they're special teamers. So, those were probably your best picks in the 6th and 7th round. So, my final grade for this is a D. Again, I talked about the Travon Walker pick, all the upside in the world. I just don't trust the Jags to get that out of him. Devin Lloyd, I don't understand why you pick him when you had Myles Jack. Fortner was just too early for him. Chad Muma, why double up on linebacker when you have other needs that are way more priority than linebacker? And then the rest of it, just kind of whatever. So then we move on to the Tennessee Titans here, who traded A.J. Brown and got that 18th overall first-round pick from the Philadelphia Eagles, so I had to take that into account. But Treylon Burks is my dude. He was number 1 on my board for receivers. I didn't care he ran 4.5 because he plays faster than that on tape. I didn't care that he looks stiff because he plays more fluid in-game. And I knew he showed up a little bit heavier than he was supposed to be, but I think he'll get back in shape. I don't think that's a problem for me. So this was the perfect fit for Treylon Burks because he's literally A.J. Brown 2.0. Very similar build, very similar play style, stuff like that. So he couldn't have gone to a better place. But I don't think Tennessee had to give up A.J. Brown. In fact, I said Debo was going to get traded draft day, so I was not expecting A.J. Brown to get traded draft day. So very, very good move here had you had to trade A.J. Brown, which they did. And Treylon Burks is a very good scheme fit here. He's going to be open on those crossing routes, very good hands, fast dude, faster than people give him credit for, physical, I think fits what Tennessee's been looking for in their receivers. So I really like this pick for them. It's still only an A- though because they did have to give up A.J. Brown in order to get him. Then Roger McCreary, I'm trying to figure out why they took him. And McCreary does have really good technique, just a smaller corner. I don't know if he's going to play outside or inside. They had Malcolm Butler on this team who's shorter, so that deems me that he could play outside. But they have, I know Jack Rabbit Jenkins is older, and I know that they have Fulton from LSU there. And they kind of need some more depth, but this is a little bit early for McCreary, in my opinion. I think you could have waited on him. I had him more as a late second round, early third. And why it's a C is just because I'm just not a big fan of him, personally. He's not, especially at the top of the second round. Andrew Booth Jr. was still on the board, who I had a day one grade on. There were some other guys on the board that I felt they could have gone. And I felt they could have gone tackle here too, or offensive line. I felt like would have been a more pressing need for them. Even quarterback. Like, I know they took Malik Willis in the third round, but they could have taken him here at the top of the second, and that would have been a better pick in my opinion. So, not really a big fan of that McCreary pick. Then Nicholas Petit-Ferre. Why? Bernard Raymond was sitting in your lap, Tennessee, and you took Nicholas Petit-Ferre, who got absolutely just demolished by Aiden Hutchinson. This one just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I think Petit-Ferre is a good run blocker with upside to be a starter, but not an elite starter. I think his pass technique needs a lot of work. I don't like his kick slide. I don't like his hand placement, so that's going to need a ton of work. He doesn't have to start day one, I don't think. I'm trying to think of the right tackle for the Titans. But if he does have to start day one, I think they're in trouble. He's not a great athlete either, so that's not going to help him. And they draft Malik Willis, who, yes, I had him quarterback 4, but I did not expect him to fall to the third round. I mean, this was just cruelty to Malik Willis. I know I was kind of hard on him, but this was insanely hard. This is a phenomenal pick for Tennessee, who I think Tannehill's going to be 34 this year, and I'm not a big Tannehill fan personally, so he can sit a year, he can sit 2 years, and then he can come in and play and light this team on fire. But I think this is a really good situation for Malik Willis to sit and learn behind a guy that has, been down, been beaten up, and then come back and, been a good player in this league in Ryan Tannehill. Hassan Haskins in the 4th round, good pick. I definitely think it was a little early for him. However, Derrick Henry is a terrible short yardage running back, and you're like, what? Derrick Henry's a power back. I understand that, but Derrick Henry takes about 15 years to get started. He's one of the slowest starting backs in the league. Why do you think Tennessee runs outside zone? Because it gives Derrick Henry time to churn up his legs, get those juices going, and for him to run fast. So Hassan Haskins gives them an option when it's 3rd and 1, when it's 4th and 1, 3rd and short type stuff. Gives them an option to put him in there to barrel his head down and, run through dudes and get the first down. I think that's a great pick. I just think that it was a little bit early. I think I saw Hassan Haskins more as a later day 3 pick, but I understand the philosophy behind that. Then they get Chigakonkwo, phenomenal pick. Jonnu Smith 2.0, great scheme fit here in that wide zone offense. They already have had the process down with Jonnu Smith, who was super raw coming out of Florida International. So this is a very, very good landing spot for him. He needed to go somewhere like Green Bay, like San Francisco, or here where they could put him as that F tight end, and he could be, in that wing role, where they scheme him up touches, give him like jet sweeps, where he doesn't have to block a ton. So I think this is a very, very good spot for Chigakonkwo to go to. And then they grab Kyle Phillips in the 5th round, really good slot receiver, another body to add to Tennessee's receiving core that has been somewhat depleted over the last couple years. So I think he's probably going to be a day 1 starter, playing slot along with Robert Woods, playing slot before Robert Woods gets healthy. So really like this pick. I think Phillips dusted everybody at the, what bowl did he go to? He didn't go to Senior Bowls. The other one down in either Hawaii or So, it gives them another nice route running option. Very good player out of UCLA. And then Theo Jackson, Chance Campbell, decent players, potential to make the team as special teamers, stuff like that. Nothing too much to say there. Final grade for the Tennessee Titans is a C+. Very good team. Number 1 seed last season. Somewhat of an underwhelming draft. I think McCreary, Petit Ferret have part to do with that, but they did grab Malik Willis, which I thought was one of the biggest steals of the draft. They grabbed Treylon Burks, who was my favorite receiver in the draft, but did give up A.J. Brown in the process, so we'll see how quickly this team rebounds from that. But thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this edition of my AFC Draft Grades in the AFC South. Tomorrow, we will have the AFC West, and then Saturday, we'll have a schedule breakdown video that will come to you on Saturday, and then off-season awards will be next week. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day, and peace.